sign for yourself? Maya, what would you like? Sign, voice?
I'm not great at signing. I just learned a
Okay.
lot in college, so I'll be speaking.
Perfect. So I will sign for you.
Okay, I think we are live on Facebook. So whenever you guys are ready, we'll get started. So yeah, hey everybody, and welcome to our 4th episode of our DHH Power Hour. I have with me tonight, I have Miss Media and Colonel Crusher. And if you don't know about Hands and Voices, we have a program called the DHH Hero Program, where we have 30 deaf adults from across the state that have volunteered to help out. They come to some of our events. You might have seen them signing the national anthem at some of our events, or walking around with their DHH Hero shirts, or we started doing these power hours after COVID, and so this is something that they do out of the kindness of their heart. They come as volunteers, and they're here to answer questions from parents, and just really they're putting themselves out there and sharing their life stories and kind of what it's been like for them as a deaf adult growing up, and the experiences that they have. So my name is Brooke Montgomery. I work with Kentucky Hands and Voices, and I am a mom to 3 boys. My 5-year-old is deaf. So this is something, that's near and dear to my heart. So I love coming and, asking questions and doing these interviews, because I always learn a lot, and I'm so appreciative of these folks coming out and talking with me. So without further ado, we'll get started and meet our guests tonight. So I have Nikki Agro and Maya Meredith. And I'm going to start just by asking you guys each to tell me your name and just kind of tell me a little bit about what your hearing loss is, so parents can kind of relate to that. So.
Okay, I can go first. My name is Nikki Igro, and my sign name is just an H. And the reason why is because back I used to ride horses, and so I used the H for horses, and then the letter my name, and Nikki. And second part to the question, sorry.
You're fine. Just tell me a little bit about your hearing loss.
Oh, okay. So when I was born with a bilateral hearing loss, and so I identified hard of hearing. And so when I grew up mainstream in school, all oral, and then later when I was 10, started signing and entered a school with a deaf program for kids like me. And throughout that process, I used art for many reasons, for just self-care, and for my future job goals, and
Very cool. And you, Maya?
My name's Maya. I was born profoundly deaf, and I got a cochlear implant at the age of 1. So I don't remember anything about that process because I was so young. I grew up just speaking English. I never learned sign language. Neither of my parents knew it, so they never taught it to me or anything, but I always wanted to learn so I could communicate with other people who had hearing loss like me. So in college, I took a few classes, and now I can have some basic conversations, but I'm not the best at it yet. I hope to continue to improve.
Very cool. I am going to put your trading cards, because that's one of the things with the DHH heroes. Each hero has their own trading card. So I'm going to share my screen and show you Maya and Nikki's trading cards. So then my next question will be just each of you kind of chose your own name for your playing cards. So I just wanted you to kind of tell me a little bit about why you chose Colonel Crusher and why you chose Miss Media.
Okay. For me, the name I picked, Miss Media, was because the word and the spelling was kind of similar to like art mixed media or Miss Media. So it sounded similar and the spelling, and so I thought it was funny.
That's cute. What about you, Maya?
So both parts of my name that I chose kind of have two meanings. So the first part, Colonel, it's kind of a title as used in the military. Colonel, I'm not in the military or anything, but I just use that as an introduction, and also because I'm at Eastern Kentucky University in school right now. We are at the Colonels, so that's what that part means. And then the second part, the Crusher part, I do a lot of rock climbing. And in rock climbing, we have this term crusher that means that someone is really good at rock climbing and they can just do everything. So that's kind of what I aspire to be, not only in rock climbing, but also in life. And I also strive to just crush everything that I go for.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I love hearing y'all explain that, because, you know, when I get the names, I don't always know the story behind it. So it's cool. I think, you know, both of you put a lot of thought into that, and that's pretty neat. So the thing about the DHH Heroes too is if you are watching tonight live and you make a comment, then we will send you guys some trading cards from Miss Media and Colonel Crusher, and at all of our events where the heroes attend, they can hand those trading cards out to the kids, and some of them like to get them autographed. So that's pretty cool too. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but the next question is just talking a little bit about your hobbies. So I know you two, well, at least I don't think you know each other, but in looking at your interests, you guys have a whole lot of interests that are the same. I think from horseback riding and hiking, and I don't know, Nikki, if you do rock climbing, but both of you listed art. So you guys have a whole lot of things in common. So I thought it would be kind of cool to bring you guys here and talk. So just, I guess, Maya, if you want to start, you already told us a little bit about rock climbing, but tell us about some of your other hobbies and more about the rock climbing too.
So as I go to school at Eastern Kentucky University, it was kind of inevitable that I get into rock climbing and hiking and all of the outdoor pursuits that I'm into now, because we are about an hour away from the Red River Gorge, which is a hotspot in Kentucky for all of that stuff. Outside of that, I like to do a bunch of artsy stuff. I like drawing and painting, and then I also do needlepoint, crochet, a bunch of stuff, anything with my hands. I like to work with my hands. And then I also do all the horseback riding, farm stuff. I grew up on a farm, so I like anything to do with agriculture. So I have a lot of hobbies.
Lots of hobbies are good. All right, Nikki.
Sure. And Jessica, I know I asked if I could sign for myself, but I know my ASL, I mix with my English when I'm talking, so maybe you can interpret with me if that's okay. Thank you. So sorry. So for me, my hobbies that I enjoy, like, of course, there's art specifically, but I also enjoy like outdoor exercising, like hiking, like just walking my dogs, and just going out, like cooking, reading, just sitting like close to my pool and just relaxing, and also just taking time for just self-care. Like I know this year it's been important to take time and do that.
Yes, self-care is huge. And I know that's something as a parent too that, I'm constantly working on and trying to remind myself that, you're only as good for everybody else as you are for yourself. So that's something we can all use a little reminder about, I know. So um, you both talked about hiking and climbing, and you might have already answered this question, but your favorite places to hike or rock climbing, and does being deaf present any benefits or challenges in doing those activities, those outdoor activities?
I can go first. So as I mentioned before, the River Gorge, definitely my favorite place to do hiking, rock climbing, all of that. If you've never been, it is an amazing place with a bunch of really cool features, and I really enjoy going there. Outside of that, I'm from about an hour away from Mammoth Cave, so that's a pretty good one too for the underground aspect of it. And then Big South Fork down Tennessee. That's pretty cool too. Basically anywhere that you can get to and get to see some really cool stuff, especially rocks. Even if I'm not climbing them, I like to look at them. So anywhere to do that, I really like.
Yeah. And for me, like doing sports and other activities, like having hearing aids or having a hearing loss, like that never mattered. That never bothered me. I think it was just people's just false assumptions about what I could do. Was some was something I had to challenge. But other than that, I really always just listened to my parents' voice, and they would tell me like they just say to me like you have confidence, you have confidence, and so those words were the words that I listened to.
I like that. Do you Maya, I don't know that you answered that part of it, just about when you are climbing, do you wear your cochlear implants? Do you have to secure those, or have you ever had any issues with that?
Sorry, I just completely forgot about the second part of the question.
No, you're fine.
But no, I don't really have any issues with it. All my friends that I go and do these things with are really supportive of it. They're the kind of people there's just like, oh, she's deaf, it's okay, we'll get around it. And yes, I wear it when I rock climb and everything, but it's generally pretty, it stays on and everything, even when I take what we call a whip in rock climbing, which is a really big fall. I've never really had any issues with it or anything other than me forgetting to replace my batteries and being halfway up the wall when they go dead. That's the only real issue I can think of.
Yeah, I let my son's battery go dead in the middle of a swim meet the other night, and I felt like the mom of the year. So I can definitely relate to that. Let's see. So both of you talked about being an artist and liking to draw and some things like that. So tell me a little bit about art and what kind of role that plays in your life. And then just if you want to expand on that, like why did you start doing art? When did you start doing art? What is your favorite? I mean, just whatever you think we want to hear. Nikki, if you want to go first.
Okay. So for me, art was always something that I done since probably as long as I can remember. Like my mom said that I was picking up crayons and pencils when I was 2 or 3. It's just always needed to have my hand moving, doing something, and the paper and pencil were the closest thing to grab. But later it became so much more of a like an important tool for me because I going through speech therapy as a young kid and mainstreaming in schools, and sometimes the school classroom environment had challenges and all these stressors. And so art became sort of my own therapy, my own form of self-care, my own just kind of way of escaping just stresses and just enjoying myself. And it also became something that developed into a skill that people noticed I had, and it seemed to kind of open up room for people to engage with me and feel more comfortable around me and way for me to express myself. So later on, I could just conduct with art. I became a graphic designer, a book illustrator, I was an art teacher, a community art activist, and engaged in community youth art programs. And so it just became generally my way of communicating, my way of engaging with people. And it became also my way of working and helping others.
Very cool. And if you have not seen any of Nikki's artwork, I don't know if you can share some of that, or if you can send me that so I can share it with some of our audience. But Nikki is an extremely talented artist, and I know she's been to Deaf Festival with some of her art, and you can see her kind of out and about with some of her artwork, and it's extremely impressive. And it's one of those things you look at and you're like, yeah, you know, our deaf and hard of hearing kids can do anything they want. And like I said, Nikki's extremely talented. So, and I think that I may have seen some of Maya's work on Facebook. Do you put any of your work out there, Maya, or is that kind of a personal thing for you?
It's usually more of a personal thing, but every once in a while I'll share a picture of something. I haven't seen Nikki's, but I'm sure I'm nowhere near as good as she is, because mine is a hobby that I do every once in a while. I can't really say that I do it to de-stress, because it tends to make me more stressed when the drawing doesn't look the way I want it to. But yeah, like she said, I've been doing it ever since I was a kid too. Just doodling on papers, sometimes on schoolwork in school, which would get me in trouble. But it's just a way for me to express creativity. Sometimes I like to imagine something happening in my head, a scene from a movie, or sometimes I'll make up something and I just want to draw it out. So that's basically just how I express some creativity in my life.
That's awesome. And you probably don't have an answer to this, but do you feel like your hearing loss has anything to do with your artistic abilities? Because I know I've heard some people, you know, if you're missing one sense, you might be heightened in another. And so I know like the visual part may be heightened. Have you ever thought about that? Do you have any feelings one way or the other?
I don't really think that that's true, because my eyesight is really bad and I actually can't smell either. So I only have 3 senses and none of them are very good. So I don't really believe in the whole what another sense gets heightened thing. But I do believe that everybody has their strengths, and that losing a sense may cause one to expand upon those strengths. So it's definitely a possibility that it's impacted in some way, but not that I've ever really thought of before.
Then I'll say, for me, yeah, I agree with Maya in the sense that I don't think it's because of like heightened senses I got into art, but I do believe my experience as a hard of hearing person definitely has been an influence in my art, because sometimes is where I go to do art and make um, to sort of express myself in ways that words I couldn't express, or I didn't have the vocabulary to express, or experiences that I couldn't describe that other hearing people would understand. And so using art to help me eventually became something that connected me to the deaf community and deaf events like Deaf Festival, where I was invited to design the poster for the event in, I think, with two, 2000 and 2014, I think it started. And then I was asked to come back again in like 2016. And so it was definitely a big important part of my life and connection to deaf culture, and why I go into now art therapy in hope and to work with the deaf community and providing them a service that I think is more a better way to communicate their feelings and their experiences visually.
All right, I'm going to skip down and let's talk a little bit about school. So, if you want to just kind of walk me through kind of what school looked like for you, as far as, was it mainstream? Was it deaf school? What kind of accommodations did you have? And, just all the way through college, high school. Did you make changes along the way? I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you guys at once. So, just tell me what about your education experience and journey that you think, parents might want to hear.
So I was homeschooled actually for the first 14 or so years of my life until high school. Freshman year of high school, I went to public school. My mom homeschooled me because she wanted to be able to be with me, to work with me, and get me the help I needed to catch up with the rest of my classmates because I had hearing difficulties. But in high school, I didn't have any challenges really with the public school setting. It was a pretty easy transition. I didn't use any accommodations or anything. I had the option there and I tested it out where my teacher would wear a microphone on their shirt and then I would have, I don't remember what it was now, but some kind of device that plugged into my implant maybe. But I only ever used it once or twice because I didn't really feel that it helped me much and it only hurt my ability to hear my classmates sitting beside me because it was a similar effect to having headphones on where you can hear the one person better, but all the rest are quieter and drowned out. In college, I haven't really had any accommodations or anything. I haven't felt like I needed them. My professors are all pretty well-spoken and everything, and I've done pretty well in classes without them, so I just haven't asked for them.
So for me, I always grew up with hearing aids and being told to keep on my hearing aids and using the FM system as well. First time the my other classmates saw it, they thought it would look like a concert speakerphone that the singers wear, and so everyone just had fun with it. Like when I was younger. Uh, and because we all grew up together, all the students knew that I had hearing aids, and it was just something that everyone just accepted. It was just normal. But till moving to the U.S., going to a new school, being the new kid, it was a bit more of a challenge because all of a sudden kids didn't know me, kids didn't have any fear in talking to me, they didn't know that I could speak, and they just kind of assumed that I couldn't. And some teachers just assumed I couldn't do things before actually really getting to know me. And so, but it also became the first time there was other kids who had hearing aids or who were deaf or hard of hearing like me, because this school had a deaf and hard of hearing program as well. So I got access to the deaf community and ASL for the first time in my life and I was at 10 years old. And so it had its changes, but it made me kind of realize what it means to be deaf and what it means to be hard of hearing or to have a hearing loss, what impression that may look to hearing people. And so it was a learning experience, a lot of positives and negatives, but definitely things that have helped me grow. But it made me realize that there was something special about being part of the deaf community, something bigger than myself, and why I wanted to learn sign and learn more about the deaf community and engage with it more. And so in college, I continued learning about ASL, but it was always a challenge also to sometimes advocate for accommodation because I've had teachers think that my grades were too good, I didn't need accommodations. And sometimes I've had teachers think I couldn't take certain classes, like language classes. I couldn't take Spanish classes or French classes. Or some of my music classes, they took me out of because they just assumed before even asking me or giving me the chance to try that I just couldn't do them. And so being able to communicate with spoken English did have an advantage because I felt confident enough to speak for myself and advocate for myself. And that helped enlighten some of my teachers, and especially when handling situations for their other students who were hard of hearing and deaf. But I also kind of felt stuck with my experience of hard of hearing. Does that mean when I grow up, will I have to be use only sign? Will I have to learn sign and not speak anymore? Or will I always, is it too late for me to become part of the deaf community? And so just more and more learning experiences from that came through schooling and came through engaging with peers who are both deaf and hearing.
So when you talk about, I guess, learning sign a little later, you said you started learning sign before college or mainly in college?
I started learning sign from actually my classmates in elementary school when I was 10. And so normally I like to sign and not speak at the same time because of the grammatical structure. So you see me speaking because I get my ASL confused around the grammatical structure because English is my first language. So I think English first and then ASL second. But I started learning when I was younger and then just continued to progress. But formal training or formal classes in ASL started in university because there wasn't much access to ASL lessons or schooling or deaf studies in my elementary, middle school, or high school. It just wasn't there. Or my high school, I did it online because once advocating I needed a language course to get an academic degree, they just put me in front of a computer with a video of a person doing sign instead of in the Spanish classroom or French classroom or German classrooms.
So you've talked to me a little bit about it before, kind of about your journey and, finding your deaf identity. And if you could you kind of talked a little bit about it, but if you want to expand on that a little bit, and then Maya, if you have anything to add to that as well. So
I'll say I'm in the transition of finding my deaf identity because while I can sign, I'm still not fluent. And switching the languages, like you see many people who have the skill to use both languages at the same time. My skills, I'm not very good doing it fast. My skills are still developing, and so I often just language switch. But in my research for my graduate studies at the university that I'm currently attending, I go into a lot of research about like the deaf identity because we know that most people are hard of hearing or deaf. They're born into hearing families, and like my family, I'm the only one hard of hearing. Everyone else is hearing. I'm the only person who knows ASL, anything about deaf culture, and so it was kind of a journey I had to cross by myself on my own and learn. But it's been something that I've never looked back and regretted it. It's something I always wanted to continue, and I found many things, parts about myself that I only find in with the deaf community because I'm not 100% hearing, but I'm also not 100% deaf. So I see myself as more bicultural. So part of myself is with the hearing world and the other part with the deaf world.
And that was one of the parents just asked, being hard of hearing and not identifying as deaf, do you feel kind of in the middle? So I think you just kind of answered that as, part deaf world, part hearing world. And so how does that look for you? Is it always you're in the middle, or do you kind of go back and forth depending on who you're with?
I think it's more like in the middle, most time. But yeah, it also depends on the environment. Like if I'm with my family, my hearing family, or with my deaf deaf friends, or in the deaf community. So I think it's something you're never like in the middle. It's not static, but you're never without the other. Like that's just who you are. Like that's just a character, your influence. And so while I identify as deaf, um, a part of me is still hearing as well.
Right. And what about you, Maya? You said that you started taking ASL in college and that you really hadn't used it before that. So what does that journey kind of look like? What made you want to try ASL in college? And yeah, just tell me about that.
My journey has actually been pretty unique in that I guess I was never really aware that there was a deaf culture until I was older, because I come from a really small town and there was only, I think, one other person that used ASL in my home. I say other person, I didn't use it then, I use it now. There was only one person that I knew back then that used it, and it was a friend's grandmother. And I always thought it was so cool, and I wanted to learn how to do that, because when I was in public, out of town and places, people would walk up to me and see my implant and start signing at me, and I would have to tell them, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And that kind of always disappointed me, because I thought signing was super cool and I wanted to learn. I wanted to be able to communicate with other people who were deaf like me. It kind of made me feel like I wasn't truly a deaf person. I know that sounds kind of silly, but that's just the way it felt. So in college, I started taking classes to fulfill a diversity requirement. And when I saw ASL listed on the sheet of classes that I could take, I knew I immediately wanted to go for that one, because I really wanted to learn how to communicate with other people who were deaf. And I also wanted to learn, it's not just for deaf people even, I think it's a very useful language otherwise, because sometimes when me and my hearing friend are eating, we both know ASL, so we'll just kind of transition into ASL as we eat. And so I think it has a lot of applications. I think it should be taught more widely than it is in schools and everything. It would make people who do use it as a primary language feel a lot better. But as for my personal journey, I'm kind of like Nikki. I don't really see myself as part of the deaf culture community completely. I know that part of me will always be a part of that because I am deaf. The fact that I have a cochlear implant is not going to change that. But I'm also not going to be fully part of the hearing community either, even though that's the culture that I grew up in. So I'm kind of, don't really know where I fit in. I'm somewhere in between the two. I'm probably more on the hearing side of things because I don't know ASL, but I am trying to learn it and learn that culture more so that I can integrate myself with other people who are like me.
And I'm just curious, with both of you kind of transitioning into more ASL, you know, at an older age, how have you all been received and welcomed into the deaf community as a whole when you have met deaf adults who primarily use ASL?
That issue, I say, all my friends, like I live in a small community, a small town, and access to the deaf community, we have to drive is in a town that we have to drive like 2 hours to connect to, and so it can be hard because you just don't have that daily exposure to ASL, or you don't know just many deaf people or hard of hearing people. And so for us growing up, we always felt kind of a bit like stuck with in the future who we become, like deaf or hearing, and we always thought we had to pick one. And I feel like, no, we're a part of both. Like, you know, people who are biracial or people who are by nationality. I'm like both Canadian and US and American. I have dual citizenship. And so you sometimes have to forget about trying to fit in the one binary identity and accept to embrace yourself, your whole self. You can accept both identities. And so that's why I identify as bicultural here, deaf. And so but it's definitely a very, very common experience that that most kids like me will experience, especially if you're hard of hearing and have some degree of hearing loss, but not 100%, or if you um, learn like Maya and me, learn about deaf culture or NAFL later in life. And so for me, I felt intimidated at first, at the thought of not being deaf enough, because I didn't sign, I didn't grow up signing. I'm still continuing in trying in processing my ASL, and I'm not fluent because I don't have that day-to-day exposure. But because of the support I do have within the deaf community and from my hearing family and friends who supported my journey, um, it's something that I feel is important and want to stick to and want to support. And in supporting like deaf rights and deaf access and deaf teaching in mainstream schools, not just deaf schools, and like making public knowledge about deaf culture and deaf people just and more accurate, more right, because there are many false assumptions like ASL being just the one and only sign language there is, when it's not. There's roughly like 300 sign language you worldwide. And so for me, it can be intimidating, and there are some who will say that I can never be deaf, and while other people who are hearing will say I don't look like or act like a deaf person, because they have one idea about a deaf person looking like or talking like or signing like or communication. So my hope is for the future to help kind of just break the misinformation and bad deaf representation.
Yeah, I can definitely say through my experience in meeting different adults that no two are the same. And just like a typical hearing person, no two are the same. So you can't make any broad assumptions that because somebody is deaf or hard of hearing that they are a certain way, because it doesn't work that way. So I have another question from, I have two questions from parents. So first, you all talked about your education. You're both still in school, is that right? And what are you studying, and what kind of degree are you pursuing?
I'm studying to become a veterinarian. I'm in the pre-vet pathway right now, and then I'm actually in the process of applying to veterinary school. If I get in, then that'll be 4 more years on top of the 4 of undergrad, and then when I graduate, I'll have my doctorate and be able to open my own practice.
That's awesome.
Right now, I'm studying art therapy for my master, for my graduate studies at the University of Concordia, and that's located in Montreal, Canada. And my hope goal for the future is to work with the public and also underserved communities in mental health, which includes like the deaf community as well, very much so. And going into more research based on art therapy and counseling.
You all both have high aspirations. I love it. That gives parents such a great picture of what their kids can grow up and do, and that's one of the most important things about the Hero program and just having you guys out there to be able to talk to parents and answer those questions. It's like, wow, my kid can grow up and do anything they want. So I love that. I respect that totally. So the next question from a parent is, it says, I've read about the stigma of deaf children getting cochlear implants. Is that something you all have seen, or has the deaf community been pretty open and inviting? So I think that would be more for you, Maya.
I have actually not experienced it so much. In college has been my first real experience with people as the deaf community, because we have an interpreter program at my school at EKU. And so there are a lot of deaf people or people who are in that culture at my school. So I've gotten to work with some of those people. I have a job on campus, and so there's a girl that works there with me. She is deaf. She speaks too, but she primarily does ASL. So I've talked to her, and she's invited me to deaf events with her and her other deaf friends, and I haven't felt any stigma from that. But my mom has talked about when I was a kid, when I first got my implant at age 1. Obviously, I don't remember any of this, but she said that I was on the news because I was the youngest in Kentucky to have gotten it at that time. And so when they showed that story on the news, my mom said that they got a lot of calls, a lot of hate mail saying that what they were doing was evil and was not right. And then we were messing with, the way things are supposed to be. I'm supposed to be deaf, so why are you altering that and giving me a way to hear? So I think there's definitely was a lot of stigma back then. I'm 21 now, so hopefully in the past 20 years that has changed a little bit, but I know there definitely used to be. In my experience, I have not personally experienced any of that, so I'm hoping it's not still out there, or at least not to the degree that it was.
I know, for a parent with a child who is deaf, that decision is such a hard decision to make, and you're pulled in lots of different directions. So I know, the importance of hearing from, deaf adults on the matter and doctors on the matter, and just kind of finding your way through that, just from a parent perspective is super hard. So, but yeah, I mean, I know a lot of deaf adults who have cochlear implants and sign, and a lot that don't. And with Hands and Voices, we have kids that do both. Some have implants, some have hearing aids. Some speak, some use sign, and we just try to welcome everybody across the board, because it's like you said earlier, Maya. At the end of the day, you're still deaf. So we're all in it together, so whether we want to be or not. So yeah. The next question, I don't have any more questions coming in from parents. So I think I talked about what you want to do after graduation. So I'll move on. What do you consider your greatest accomplishment in life so far? It can be related to your hearing loss or not. Just, something you want to put out there and tell parents, like, hey, I'm deaf or hard of hearing, but I did this. Anything that comes to mind?
I can go. So I don't like this. I feel like I'm bragging. But in high school, I was always really focused on grades, and I was very studious. I like to study a lot. I did other things in high school too. I was in some sports, track and cross country, and then I was also big in Future Farmers of America. But probably my biggest accomplishment in high school would be that I was the president of my FFA chapter. That involves a lot of speaking, a lot of being around people and talking to people, and a lot of being in front of the entire maybe not the entire school, but the entire school's FFA club. So that was definitely something that, it kind of may make other people think, oh, hey, this is a deaf person. Deaf person can do this. Deaf person can, grow up and become the FFA president at their high school. And then in college, I'm currently serving as the program assistant for the campus recreation adventure programs. So basically what that means is I help manage the climbing wall. And so that's another thing I'm pretty proud of, is that is that basically I get to be in a position where I get to not only reach out to other people and teach them about the sport that I love, about outdoor recreation, but also that I can show them that you can do all of these things. You can be a rock climber, you can, do things and be deaf. Those are not two things that have to exist separately. They can exist together, because I think there's a lot of stigma that just because you have this disability, whether it be being deaf or, maybe being an amputee or whatever else it is, that you cannot do other things. Something that I really like to say in my life is that we're gonna do this. So don't set your goals with anything holding you back in mind. Just say, this is what I want to do. Somehow, it's okay to say I don't know how, but somehow I'm going to get there. So that's just kind of the take I like to have on things, is just don't limit yourself.
That's perfect. What about you, Nikki?
Well, for the teachers who thought I couldn't speak or learn a language, well, I've already spoken English all my life, and I also am learning French now, which I'm going to be using in Montreal, and ASL. So I think those little things have been big accomplishments for my own self-confidence. Traveling abroad twice on my own for my studies, being able to navigate and also plan to live on my own in a country separate from my parents for the first time, like having the confidence and to know that I can do that, or go from graduating high school to graduating university to now continuing a master's program. Those are all like big accomplishments for me, and being able to feel confident in my own skin and who I am, and whether I'm signing or speaking or identifying as deaf or hearing, or both at the same time, like you can feel that too. Um, those are all like also important, like personal successes for me. And in terms of just the world is your oyster, is never, you always have opportunities. There are always strengths, and there are always challenges, but what you experience from those challenges will only make you stronger for when you face those challenges again.
I love that. You guys have wonderful answers. So, and last question is, what advice do you have for parents of children who are deaf or hard of hearing? So what do you kind of want to leave the parents with who are watching tonight? You all have said a lot of great things already, but
I think I would say, like, whether you decide, whether you personally, speaking to the parents, whether you personally have experience in the deaf community or with ASL, what's best for your child, but also I would encourage having that early exposure. Like if you decide a cochlear implant is important for your child to have, then that's your right as a parent to make that decision. But I would also encourage having exposure to both the deaf and hearing communities, because for me growing up, not seeing a deaf adult till much later in my life, to be true and honest, that I would always question my own identity and what I was supposed to be doing, or how I was supposed to, who I would be when I grow up. And this is often something that most kids, whether they're hard of hearing, whether they're deaf, will experience. So I think in preparing for that, when they're, becoming older, going from teen to becoming their own adult, helping them with that journey and helping them experience both worlds that will have shared experiences with them, where they can also learn about people, whether hearing, whether deaf, who are like-minded. It can create a beautiful support group for their child.
I think my best advice would probably just be, don't let anything stop you. Don't make being deaf this bad thing. It doesn't have to be this bad thing. Don't be sad about it. Don't be upset that your child was born deaf or born with hearing loss. It is only a bad thing if you make it out to be, because life is always what you make it. So just be willing to put in the work to help your child achieve whatever they want, and they will definitely be able to do it. Nothing about being deaf or hard of hearing will ever stop them unless they let it. So definitely just keep your head up, keep pushing. Great things will happen always in your child's life, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from. So just sky's the limit.
And maybe if I could add one more note, just about the deaf community, because I know this is also an issue for hearing parents who often question about the community and their judgment about their decisions. There may be people who will not agree with your decision, but I think there are more people in the deaf community, especially, who will be still there to support you, support your child, and will be welcome you in open arms to just wanting to at least try to learn more about deaf culture, and they will be in a very respectful way. So I think not to shy away, because that's also some of the stigmas that encourage these type of things that your child might experience. So it's really important to have that sort of bridge and the cultural connection.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful advice from both of you guys, and we are right at 8:30, so we're going to end with that question. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining me tonight and answering some hard questions, some easy questions, some fun questions. I've really enjoyed getting to know you guys a little better, and hopefully, soon we're going to be having some more in-person events and get you guys out there and meet some families. Nikki, when you're home, I don't know what you call home, Canada or Kentucky, but we're in Kentucky. You'll have to, come out and see us again. I know you've been able to do some events in the past, so we love having you guys. And we do have Zoo Day coming up on September 4th. If you haven't seen that, the details will be coming out. We're still working on details because we just found out we got the date. We didn't think we were going to get it, and now they told us we're going to be able to do Zoo Day on September 4th. So all the details will be coming soon, and hopefully we'll get some of our heroes there and get to meet you guys in person. So thank you all so much again, and we'll talk soon. And again, Power Hour will be back next month, the third Tuesday of the month. I'm not sure what that date is, but it's 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. on Facebook Live. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you.